Hello! Today we're going to learn from the Bible. Can you say Bible? Good, Bible. And the Bible is going to teach us all about love. Now, the Bible also tells us that God is love, that Jesus is love. So as we learn about what love is, we want to learn what it looks like to love like Jesus. And a great passage that teaches us all about love is 1 Corinthians 13. And the first thing that this passage says is that love is patient. Can you say that with me? Love is patient. Now, we wrote a whole little book that we're going to go through together, and it's going to talk about how we can love like Jesus, because Jesus is love, and he is the only one who can teach us what love looks like. And so the first thing we are learning about is how love is patient. Let's think about a way that Jesus is patient. Jesus showed patience to his disciples. Think about when Jesus said to them, I want you to pray with me. Can you pray for 1 hour? And Jesus went off, and then he came back, and what were his disciples doing? Oh no, they were sleeping. They were sleeping. And so Jesus said, wake up. Can't you pray for me with 1 hour? So he went off and he came back, and what were they doing again? Oh no, they were sleeping. Jesus showed patience to his disciples in so many different ways. This is just one of them. And Jesus tells us that we need to love by showing patience to others. So let's think about a way that we can show patience and we can love others. Instead of saying something like, hurry up, and being impatient, we want to love people by waiting with a happy heart. And so if we're getting out the door or we're waiting for our turn, instead of saying, hurry up, we can love like Jesus and show patience by waiting with a happy heart. As we learn all about love, we want to memorize the verse that we're talking about love. 1 Corinthians 13. It says, love is patient. Can you say that with me? Love is patient. Now let's keep learning about what 1 Corinthians says about how we can love like Jesus. So let's look at our book again. The next part of 1 Corinthians 13 says that love is patient and love is kind. If love is kind, that means that Jesus is kind. He is the perfect example of what kindness looks like. We can think back to when Jesus fed so many people bread and fish. He cared for their needs, and so he gave to them so generously. So what is a way that we can show kindness to others and love them as well? Instead of saying, those are mine, we can share our things with our friends, with anyone who wants to use our toys or different things that God has given us. This is a way that we can be kind. Let's keep memorizing our verse about love, 1 Corinthians 13. It says, love is patient and kind. Can you say that with me? Love is patient and kind. Very good. Now let's keep learning all about what love is. The next thing in our verse tells us that love does not envy. That means that Jesus does not envy. Let's think about a way that Jesus chose not to envy and want things that were not for him to have. Let's think about how Satan came to Jesus and he tried to tempt Jesus and say, you can have all these kingdoms if you bow down to me. Now, God had promised Jesus that he would inherit all the kingdoms of the world, but not through disobedience, not from bowing down to Satan. Jesus knew that he had to say no to envy and to say yes to God. That is a great example of how Jesus did not envy, but instead he chose to obey God and love God with his whole heart. Let's think about a way then that we can love by not envying what other people have. Instead of saying, I want that, we can be so thankful for what God has already given us and what God has given other people. We can be thankful that other people have things that we don't have because God has given us good gifts, and we want to love God and love others by not envying, but being thankful for what God has given. Let's continue to memorize 1 Corinthians 13 together, which says, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy. Let's say it again together. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy. Very good. Now let's keep learning from 1 Corinthians 13 what love is and how we can love like Jesus. The next thing we're going to learn is that love does not boast. Love does not make itself most important. Love is humble. Just like Jesus, Jesus does not boast. Jesus humbled himself and did not say me first, but he died on the cross for our sins. So how can we love like Jesus? Instead of saying me first, we want to put others first and make them more important than ourselves. That's a great way that we can love like Jesus. Let's keep memorizing 1 Corinthians 13, our passage that's teaching us all about love. It says, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. Let's say that again together. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. Very, very good. Now let's keep learning all about love together. The next thing we're going to learn is that love is not arrogant. That means that Jesus is not arrogant. He did not consider himself most important and say, I'm not going to serve in that way. He was ready to do whatever it took to serve other people. Let's think about how Jesus washed the disciples' feet. Their feet would have been so stinky and so icky because they wore sandals everywhere. And so their feet would have been so dirty. Jesus was not arrogant. He wanted to serve others. And so he washed his disciples' feet. How then can we love like Jesus? We can love Jesus like Jesus by not being arrogant, but instead being a servant. Look, instead of saying, do this for me, we can serve others. What is something that we could do to serve others today? Who is someone that you could show love to by putting their needs above your own? That is a great way that we can love like Jesus. Let's keep memorizing our verse that's teaching us about love. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4. Let's say it together. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant. Good. Let's do it one more time. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant. Now, the next thing that love is not is that it's not rude. And if love is not rude, then Jesus is not rude. There was a time when Jesus was teaching and parents were coming and bringing their children to Jesus, little children just like you. But the disciples said, no, don't interrupt Jesus. Don't bring your children. They were very rude to the parents and the children that wanted to come see Jesus. But Jesus was not rude, and he said, "Let the children come to me." How loving of Jesus. Now let's think about a way that we can show love by not being rude. Instead of saying, "I don't want to play with you," we should say things like, "Come and play with me." We can invite people to come play with us. That's a way that we can not be rude, but be so kind and show love just like Jesus. Let's keep memorizing 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4. It says, "Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude." Very good. Now let's learn more about what love is from Jesus. 1 Corinthians 13 tells us that love does not insist on its own way. That means that Jesus does not insist on his own way. Let's think about before Jesus died on the cross, how he went to the garden and he prayed to God. And he was asking God if there was any other way, because he didn't want to have to go through all the pain that the cross was going to bring. But instead of insisting on his own way, Jesus said, "Not my will, but your will be done, God." Wow, Jesus gives us such an example of what it looks like to obey God, to love God, to not insist on our own way. Now let's think about a way that we can love others by not insisting on our way. Instead of us saying, "I want to do it my way," we could show love to others by saying, "What do you want to do?" We say we're willing to do what they would like to do instead of doing it our own way. Or think about how we want to be obedient to what God says. When we obey God, and that's us saying, "I'm not going to insist on my way, but I want to do it God's way." That is a great way that we can show love to others and that we can show love to God by insisting not on our way, but insisting on his. Let's keep memorizing 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4. Say it with me. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. Very good. Excellent job. Now let's keep learning from 1 Corinthians 13 how we can love like Jesus. Let's look at our book together. 1 Corinthians 13 tells us that love is not irritable or easily angered. That means that Jesus is not irritable. Let's think about a time where Jesus showed love by not being irritable. Let's think about when Jesus was on trial. People were so unkind to Jesus. They were hurting Jesus and saying false things about Jesus. But Jesus was not mean or hurtful in return. We can love like Jesus by, instead of saying, "If you're going to be mean to me, I'm going to be mean to you," instead, we can use gentle words when others are unkind to us. When we're shown unkindness, we can love by, instead of getting angry or irritated, we can instead show love and be gentle and be gracious with others. That's a way that you and I can love like Jesus. Let's practice our memory verse together. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4. Here we go. Love is patient and kind. It does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. Now we're going to learn that love is not irritable and love is not resentful. That means that Jesus is not resentful. Let's think about when Jesus was on the cross, and as they were crucifying him, Jesus said, Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus was ready to offer forgiveness when people were unkind to him. So how can we show love to others? Instead of saying, I'm mad at you, we can say, I forgive you. When others treat us wrongly or poorly or hurt our feelings, instead of saying, I'm mad, we don't want to be resentful. We want to say, I forgive you. That is a great way that we can show love and love like Jesus. So let's end with our memory verse one last time. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4. Here we go. Love is patient and kind. It does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. Excellent job! Great job memorizing. We have learned so much about what it looks like to love like Jesus. I can't wait to talk about the Bible with you again. Bye!